Why do we fret so much over what art means? Susan Sontag was not a fan of doing this, and in her 1966 essay Against Interpretation, Sontag built a case against the intellectual game of dissecting art for hidden meaning. For her, art is not a riddle to solve. We should instead feel art. Sontag suggests overinterpretation transforms art into something it isn't. She says interpretation is the revenge of the intellect upon art. And when we pick apart paintings or books, reducing them to tidy packages of meaning, we pacify art. Art is meant to make us uncomfortable or even confused. It's meant to engage our senses and emotions. Throughout history, critics relied on a concept called mimesis, which asserts art represents reality, and this induced a need to interpret things. The Greek philosophers wanted art to reflect some truth, and later literary movements like New Criticism kept this tradition alive. In searching to prescribe meaning, Sontag argues that we lose sight of form and sterilize art. Sontag says contemporary criticism is too invested in the content of a work or what the work is about, and that its form or presentation gets sidelined. For her, this obsession with meaning misses the point of art entirely. In place of an hermeneutics, we need an erotics of art, she writes. So there's a need to focus on the sensory experience of art, color, texture, sound, not just what it says. For example, in film, she argues that focusing on things like angles, light, and movement provides a richer experience than just trying to interpret the story. This doesn't mean that Sontag was an anti-intellectual. Far from it. She just wanted a balance, an acknowledgement that sometimes the way something is presented is just as important as what it's trying to say. Sontag wants us to feel art, first and foremost. Real art, she writes, has the capacity to make us nervous. That strangeness emerges when encountering something new. It can be demanding and uncomfortable even. Instead of rushing to neutralize that discomfort, she suggests lingering with it, letting art impact us on an emotional level. Consider the way we engage with art online. Skipping through images, memes, videos, reactions, not reflection, are the order of the day. Sontag's suggestion of dwelling in art can be an antidote to high-speed cultural consumption. And this raises the question of whether we can really ever avoid interpretation when it comes to art. Some of Sontag's critics have argued that interpretation is just a natural part of how we take things in, and looking at a painting without trying to interpret it might be a form of interpretation. In this sense, perhaps some degree of intellectual engagement is unavoidable. Moreover, different types of art might call for different approaches. Sontag argues against interpreting all art, but in reality, certain genres, like poetry, often invite interpretation more than others, like abstract painting. The challenge is finding the balance between experiencing art on a sensory level and intellectually engaging with it when necessary. What does Sontag's argument look like in the present? We're not in the 1960s anymore, after all. On one level, social media makes her warnings all the more urgent. Art and culture are both consumed and interpreted at lightning speed. How about memes? These are often created and disseminated in mere minutes, with the original context sometimes lost. Sontag's critique of interpretation applies here too. What if we focused on the form and feeling behind a meme instead of its immediate message? In the world of film and television, binge watching and endless recaps often reduce shows to their content alone. And in our rush to interpret and critique, we can lose the emotional impact that Sontag valued so much. If we took her advice, maybe we'd watch a movie for how it moves and feels instead of what it means. Sontag's ideas on interpretation and criticism have had a lasting impact on how we engage with art today. Critics and scholars have picked up on her call to focus more on form, leading to movements like post-critique, which attempt to find new ways of engaging with art without the heavy reliance on intellectual analysis. So let's put these ideas into practice with Vincent van Gogh's The Starry Night and William Carlos Williams' The Red Wheelbarrow. Now, we often view The Starry Night through a symbolic lens, with interpretations about Van Gogh's mental state, the meaning of the swirling sky, or the looming cypress tree. Using Sontag's lens, resist this impulse and focus on the raw experience of looking at the painting. Feel the movement of the brushstrokes. The sky swirls and circles upon circles. The stars are bright. The deep dark blues, yellows, and whites create a vortex of chaos and calm. When you look at this motion on the canvas, how does it make you feel? Does the swirling sky make you wonder, make you restless, or induce a sense of calm? Viewing the starry night in this way is purely sensory. You don't need to know Van Gogh's history or analyze the meaning behind the sky or village. Instead, feel the painting as an expression of motion, light, and color. Experience it physically, not intellectually. Now, turning to poetry, let's take William Carlos Williams' The Red Wheelbarrow. Critics have picked apart the short, simple poem for ages looking for its hidden meaning. Applying Sontag's approach, we stop asking what the wheelbarrow and the chickens symbolize, and we simply see the imagery. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow, glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. The shortness of the lines creates a rhythm reflective of the simplicity of the scene. Let the visual of that red wheelbarrow, shiny from rain, settle into your mind. Notice the contrast between the red and white. Feel the scene. What emotions rise when you picture this ordinary, quiet moment? Without interpretation, it's just a snapshot, a moment in time, a still image, a play of visuals. You don't need to know what the wheelbarrow symbolizes. You can enjoy the calm, rustic image that Williams has given you. Taking on the non-interpretation challenge is a refreshing way to engage with art. For both the Starry Night and the Red Wheelbarrow, trust your sensory reaction rather than seeking hidden meanings. Let go of the need to translate them into intellectual terms and experience them for what they are: vibrant displays of colors, shapes, and feelings. As Susan Sontag reminds us in Against Interpretation, it's good to sometimes just step back and see what art actually is rather than just what it means. We should trust our senses, as she said, to be there with a piece, to just sit with it and avoid the allure of interpretation. So the next time you come across a painting, read a book, or watch a film, see what happens if you try to let it speak to your senses first. It might be the case that art has a lot more to give us once we stop incessantly trying to figure it out. If you enjoyed this video, you know the drill. Like, share, and subscribe. Your support really does help grow the channel. And this one might be the one to watch next.